week. We have much to be thankful for, even during these challenging times. You've probably noticed that we have moved back to virtual meetings. Last summer, when the council talked about the flat infection rates, we projected that we could safely move to hybrid meetings in November. But now, based on the pandemic surge this fall and in light of Governor Walz's new executive order, we are taking steps backwards for everyone's safety and protection. I want to thank staff and council members and all of our commission members for their flexibility and their willingness to pivot as the data changes. One thing that we can truly say is that we are indeed resilient and that we can continue to safely conduct city business. As the data changes, we will adapt with everyone's safety our first priority. So with that, I want to welcome everyone and let us start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk Sint, would you please do our roll call?
Councilmember Juniman.
Here.
Councilmember Knudsen.
Here.
Councilmember Neblett.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Mayor Abrams.
I am here as well. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. Council members, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Neblett, seconded by Juniman, the motion to approve the agenda. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor,
Yes?
I have one council presentation.
Okay.
An update on the Nature Center Task Force. Yay.
I have one to add as well concerning small businesses in our community, the proclamation that we adopted several weeks ago. So I'll add that. Anything else that we want to add? Okay, with that in mind then, let's do roll call. And the order that we're going to use tonight will be Councilmember Neblett, Councilmember Juniman, Councilmember Smith, and Councilmember Knudsen. So let's move to the vote. Councilmember Neblett, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Juniman?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Knudsen?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The agenda is approved. Moving on to the minutes. First, we have the November 9th, 2020 City Council meeting minutes.
I move approval.
Moved by
Second.
Juniman, seconded by Neblett, the motion to approve the November 9th, 2020 City Council meeting minutes. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor, on page 9 of the packet, there's a typo at the very bottom of the page. It should say if it's not terribly expensive instead of expense.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, then let's move to the vote. Councilmember Neblett.
Aye.
Councilmember Juniman.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Knudsen.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The City Council meeting minutes for November 9th are approved. Moving on to the November 12th, 2020 Special City Council meeting minutes. Is there a motion concerning those minutes?
I move approval. Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Neblett, the motion to approve the November 12th, 2020 Special City Council meeting minutes. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then let's go to a vote. Councilmember Neblett.
Aye.
Councilmember Juniman.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Knudsen.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The November 12th meeting minutes are approved. Moving on to appointments and presentations. The council calendar update, City Manager Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. This is an informational report in which I outline the upcoming City Council meetings and work sessions. On December 14th, that will be our first and only council meeting scheduled for the month of December. We will be adopting the 2021 budget and capital improvement plan. And we also need to schedule an EDA meeting. We have a couple of items of business for you. We believe will take about a half an hour. So I would like to start the EDA meeting at 6:30. I would also like to ask Councilmember Smith and Councilmember Neblett if they would allow us to do a reception, a Zoom reception for them from 5 o'clock till 6:30 that evening. So if they consent to that, we'll plan that for the 14th.
I think that would be lovely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I agree, and you can send the cake to my house.
There you go. That's a great idea. Or the donuts or whatever. So
Yeah.
excellent idea. Thank you, Councilmembers Neblett and Smith. With that, our next meeting looking into January will be the oath of office for Mayor Abrams, Councilmember Knutson, Councilmember Cave, and Councilmember Villavicencio. And then on the council comments at the last council meeting, it was requested that we do an update on the ponds of Battle Creek. And as most of you know, there was a meeting with the neighborhood last Thursday evening. So Jeff Thompson is going to report on that actually on the next item of business under presentations, or after the council members have their presentations. Jeff will be giving you an update on that. So Mayor, that's all I have this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments for City Manager Coleman? Councilmember Neblett.
No, thank you.
Councilmember Juniman.
No, thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
No, thank you.
And Councilmember Knutson.
No, thank you.
Okay, then moving on to council presentations. Councilmember Juniman, you had an update on the Nature Center Task Force.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. At the request of City Manager Coleman, and because we are at a very appropriate time to update, I thought I would just give you a couple minutes worth. This has been a great group with varied experiences and expertise and interest. It's been a wonderful series of brainstorming sessions and discussion. We are finally at what I call a natural progression to a kind of a common idea of plan and goals. And at our most recent meeting, we agreed to put things in categories and discussed timelines and started some more specific recommendations. So I'll just outline the categories for you quickly. And council, if you want this information in some kind of a summary form, you can email Mike Sable, the Assistant City Manager, and he can send it to you. But we've kind of boiled it down into 6 categories, and we grant that they probably are going to overlap as we move forward, but it's still a way to group things. And they're not in any order of priority. The physical asset, that is the use of the site in the building. Number 2 is partnership, prioritization, and possible collaboration. Number 3 are service levels and business model. And under that, who is our target audience? Can we do some virtual programming? And there's going to be some creating of self-guided walks and tours. That's already in the works, thanks to the Friends of Maplewood Nature. The 4th is financial investments, both capital and operations. 5th is environmental education. And 6th is volunteer coordination and support. And again, those are in no order of priority, and you can obviously see there's some overlap. The timelines, we broke it down into 0 to 6 months is a short timeline. Medium would be 6 to 18 months, and long term would be 3 years and over, where we see ourselves going with this. I'll give you an example. If we were doing recommendations by timeline for the physical building site, the short-term recommendation we have formed is finding a way to open up the building with existing staff in the near term, so staff can monitor the building itself. It can be kept open, and it helps people relate to the fact that it's there and that we are keeping it up. And then in the medium term, that would be 6 to 18 months. We said we should explore various models for uses in the building, rental for meetings, for parties, full or partial day camp offerings, ECFE classes, on and on and on and on. But that's the type of thing we're talking about for the midterm. And long term, we recommend searching for some long-term programming ideas and investigating uses via collaboration, possibly with other nature centers, to make this a long-term sustainable thing. And we're progressing really well. I think we're making some realistic recommendations based on present thought of what the future might hold, possibly pandemic setting us back some. We have one more meeting scheduled for December 3rd, but we asked if we might, with council's blessing, have the latitude to possibly hold one additional meeting to pull together all the possible recommendations if we don't get them all done next time, and then how to communicate the possible overlap of some of the categories. So there we are.
Thank you very much for that report, Councilmember Juniman. In terms of asking for the council's blessing, when would that additional meeting occur that you're requesting?
Well, it could even be after the first of the year. It depends on how next time goes, because we're hoping to crank out the basic recommendations. So we haven't really talked, Mr. Sable and Ms. Coleman and I can talk about this too, but there may be a need to possibly try and help format. Would there be some subcommittees that would move forward? For instance, the volunteers who are very enthusiastic, how would we coordinate that? They could look into some of that. We need people, and they've been volunteering to help with this. We need people to look at the possibility of collaboration down the road. How would we do that? We kind of need some ongoing support from these people in order to pull off the long-term recommendations. So I don't know that we can put another one in December, although I haven't looked at the 10th as an option, but it may well be after the first of the year. I don't know. It's just in case we don't get it all pulled together.
Sure. I have certainly no objection to that. And I think the more comprehensive a report we can get, the better it's going to be for all of us to be able to make decisions.
Right.
So that's my thought on it. Okay. Let's see the other council members, what they think. Councilmember Neblett.
I absolutely agree, Mayor. If you need extra time to pull it all together to make it comprehensive, do it. As long as the people who are there at the table are engaged, go for it.
Thank you. They're really good.
It sounds like a lot of really good work has been done so far. So good for you guys.
Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I would agree. I think seems like a good idea to go that route.
Councilmember Knudsen.
I would agree. I'm thinking also that the Parks and Rec group would probably enjoy a little extra time. Just sorting out all the matrix of the different participants in Parks and Rec from various communities has been quite interesting. But I agree.
Okay, good. And, in light of the fact that, where we are with the pandemic and with the current governor's orders, it just makes sense. A little bit of additional time will produce a much better product. I think that that's great. And we're really not losing any time because of the pandemic and where we are with that right now. So
thank you, Mayor.
There you go. Thank you, Councilman, for that. The next agenda item that I added had to do with small businesses, and certainly with the most recent changes in the governor's executive order, our businesses are once again in a position where many of them are back, it seems, almost at square one. And so I just wanted to refresh everyone's memory that just in the last couple of weeks, the council did a proclamation for Small Business Friday, which is coming up this week. And so this really is just a reminder to everyone that please get out and shop small. Obviously, physical distancing, wearing masks, but support your local businesses out there, and also order a takeout meal, or better yet, send a takeout meal for someone that as a surprise to them. But use our restaurants and our businesses because they really need some help. Also, along that line of small businesses, I just want to remind our small businesses that Ramsey County does have remaining CARES Act funds to assist businesses that may have experienced financial strain as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. And this is going to be the last grant round for 2020, and businesses will be funded on a rolling basis until funds are exhausted. And maybe, Mr. Sharon, what we can do is put something on our website about that tomorrow. This includes businesses that have already received funding through Ramsey County. They are also eligible for consideration, and they're able to receive an additional grant up to $5,000. Businesses with employees are eligible for no more than $15,000 cumulatively, or $2,500 if they are self-employed or sole proprietors. So there still is assistance out there, and I just want to focus on that for our small businesses. So there, moving on, let's
Mayor?
move on.
Mayor?
Yes,
I know
Councilman.
this is out of order, but may I add something to our council presentations really quick?
I have no objection to that.
Okay, I'll be quick. I just wanted to say that I was invited to the MORE meeting today. MORE standing for, okay, Mike Sable. I get the racial equity part.
Maplewood Organization for Racial Equity.
Thank you. And it was chaired by Chief Mondor. And this organization, for folks listening, is an organization inside the city of Maplewood that is working on issues around racial equity. And they are the ones who coordinated the coat collection as well as the food handout, the boxes that were handed out. But they're doing so much more. And I just want to publicly acknowledge them for their hard work that they've been doing since 2016. So I was just really pleased to be able to attend their meeting and just hear what they've done and what they're trying to do. So kudos to them and keep up the good work. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Neblett.
Wow.
Much appreciated. Let's see, the next agenda item is Mr. Thompson, the update on the ponds at Battle Creek public engagement that occurred on Thursday night. And I have to say, I attended that Zoom meeting, and I think it is the largest meeting. It wasn't a Zoom meeting, they used a different platform, but it was the largest virtual meeting that I think I've been involved with since we have gone to virtual meetings during this pandemic. So, Mr. Thompson, would you give us the staff report, please?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So yeah, as you referenced, we did hold our first community engagement meeting last Thursday in conjunction with Ramsey County and Perkins and Will for the Ponds at Battle Creek project. As you recall, when the council reviewed the scope of work and the cooperative agreement with Ramsey County for this project, there were at the time, questions about how we were going to effectively do community engagement during a pandemic, something that we hadn't done to this scale yet. And so we worked with Perkins and Will, who have, as a firm, done a number of community engagement sessions throughout the pandemic. And I would say, yes, I don't believe that we were negatively impacted with attendance as a result of this. In fact, at one point, I think I saw that there were over 120 people that were logged into the Teams online meeting. There were a few technical glitches, but we were able to accomplish in that community meeting largely what the scope of work outlined. And then we were also to really have the conversation. We went over to a different platform called Miro, so that all of the community members that were in attendance were able to directly provide feedback for questions that were provided. We also used the chat function in the program, and at the end, we did have a open mic session, a brief open mic session for the community members to be able to provide their feedback. I think, to summarize at a very high level, I think what we heard, and we'll certainly make this more detailed in a report and in kind of the feedback and report from the session itself. But certainly the overwhelming position of most, if not everyone at the meeting, was the continued goal of preservation of parks and open space on these parcels of land, and a number of comments about retaining golf operations on the ponds of Battle Creek and the importance that is to the neighborhood. I think what we also heard is that there's still a lot of questions and around the county's decision to close the golf course and what their intentions are for repositioning that property in the future. And we heard those questions, and we will continue to meet with the county to press them to be able to answer the questions that have come up regularly about the decision, the why behind it, and then kind of their direction for the future of the land as property owner for those two parcels. So we'll continue to work through that feedback and those questions that the community had at the meeting as we kind of, what I will say, kind of adapt a little bit on our next steps and what our next community meeting looks like. But this doesn't mean that the engagement on the first questions are done. We have a robust project page on the city's website where that's kind of the main page for the project is on our website. Search for Ponds at Battle Creek. And there are two new things posted on that website. First is the survey. So the questions that we asked on the mural board at the community meeting are now posted on the website. So if people weren't able to attend or were not able to answer those questions at the meeting, they can now fill out that survey. And second, there is a recording of that meeting so people can go back and view the meeting in full to get some of the background information. So with that, Mayor, as I mentioned, we will work with the county to continue to determine what the next steps are in the process, not only to respond to the feedback we heard, but also to answer the questions that came up at that meeting. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Questions, Councilmember Neblett,
No, thank you.
Councilmember Juniman.
Yes, thank you. To put you on a spot, but not a real hot spot, could you group, say, the top 3 questions that seem to be on people's minds?
I say the top 3 are, why did the county make the decision to close the golf course? Because a lot of people believe that the golf course was in fact making money or was not creating a financial drain on the county. And so there was a lot of questions about why they had made the decision already to close the golf course. And then the second major question that comes to my mind is, what are the county's plans or goals for the property? I think that's been unclear to people is, they made that decision and that's been communicated, but what they want to do has not been clearly articulated. So a lot of questions about what now, what are the county's goals? And then the third was really around, I think they really focused on the north parcel, on opportunities to bring that into the Battle Creek Regional Park property rather than develop it. So those were if I had to pick the 3, those would, I'd say, are the top 3.
Thank you. I just wanted to get a little flavor since I wasn't able to be there. And I do think people are quite intuitive, might I say. It's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was not able to attend the entire meeting, but I was there for about the first half. And, I think this is a great example where a lack of community engagement causes a whole lot more problems than are necessarily warranted, right? Yeah. I think there are a lot of people who are very frustrated by that initial process. And I think it's made having a community engagement process more difficult. I was sort of surprised by, the number of people that were on a Zoom call with over 100 people chatting in all capital letters. When are they going to listen to the community? And I sort of wanted to say this is listening to the community right now. it's a I think there's a fair amount of anger that has spurred up over the last year, and it's going to take a little time for people to get over that and start to look forward. I think there's still a lot of looking back at what has already happened. And, you know, the reality is the county has made the decision that they've made, and now we have to figure out how to move forward. And I'm hoping as we continue this discussion with the community that we can really start to look at what's next rather than sort of play Sunday morning quarterback and rehash what's already happened. I actually have some of those same questions as far as the motivations behind the county and really understanding where they're going. I still don't fully understand all of that. And, you know, I look forward to kind of continuing that process, but I'm really glad we were able to open this conversation. I think this first one, if nothing else, you know, gave people the opportunity to sort of get their feels out on this. And, you know, I'm hoping as we go through, we have more of a forward-looking strategic look. But yeah, I think a little work on the county on the front end of actually engaging the community in the discussion would have averted a lot of that. So, you know, I don't think there was any ill intent. I think it's just one of those things where we learn from a mistake and move forward.
Let's hope they learned.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Knudsen.
I just want to thank Commissioner Reinhardt for being our partner in this engagement. I think it's helped us to get the report that Mr. Thompson presented is, you know, is hopeful. So appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Thompson. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have 9 items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I move approval of the consent agenda items G 1 through 9.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Neblett. The consent agenda items 1 through 9. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then let's take a vote. Councilmember Neblett.
Aye.
Councilmember Juniman.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Knudsen.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. We have no public hearings tonight, and we have no unfinished business to discuss tonight. Now we're moving on to new business. The first item is the solid waste management ordinance. And there are 2 proposed motions on this particular topic. Mr. Thompson, you are noted as the presenter tonight.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So as you introduced, this is the Council's review of some updates and our amendments to the city's solid waste management ordinance. I know at the last meeting I had a problem with the slides, but so can you see the second slide that says background now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So as I mentioned, this is really an update to our current ordinance. The city's initial or our current solid waste management ordinance was actually adopted back in 2012 when the city organized collection of residential trash and recycling services. And really this ordinance update is coming as kind of a next step in our new contracts for residential trash and recycling services within Maplewood. So as this project has transpired, we first released the RFPs for those services. We then awarded the new 5.5-year contracts towards the end of last year. And those contracts took effect on January 1st of this year. In that RFP that was authorized by the council and ultimately in the contracts for both of these services, we contemplated changes in how these services are being provided. So what we're going back now and doing is updating the ordinance to be consistent with some of the new provisions in our trash and recycling contracts. Really the biggest change is around the recycling services provided to multiple family properties. So let me first by just kind of summarizing, by multifamily, we mean anything that's 4 or more units. So it could include kind of a traditional apartment building, townhomes, or even manufactured home parks. And currently there are slightly over 6,200 total multifamily units in Maplewood. Under our 2012 ordinance, we actually allow multifamily properties to opt into the recycling service. Or I should say we allowed them to opt out. And 5 complexes within the community for a total of 800 units are not currently opted in for the city's recycling program. One of the changes that was instituted in the contract, in the RFP and in our contracts is to amend our ordinance to require all multifamily properties to be a part of the city's curbside recycling program or in our recycling program. What we've done in this draft ordinance is to allow, so any new multifamily properties or any existing properties that are already opted in are required to continue to opt in or to opt in. But for those 5 that have already opted out, we are essentially grandfathering them in or continuing to allow them to opt out of our services until such time that those properties are sold. But I'd say that's probably the largest change in this draft ordinance. But again, it's consistent with the RFP and the contracts that we have approved. The last list of items are what I would kind of consider cleanup items, and these are related to, again, changes within the contracts. That one, we now allow for dumpsters for recycling for multifamily. So before our services only allowed for carts, but now our contract allows for multifamily dumpsters, just providing more specificity around the actual allowable hours of collection, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Again, putting the information in about that the payments for recycling are collected on the water bill, providing the option for small businesses and church to opt in, as well as some of the requirements for them to opt into our program. Additional provisions around commercial building recycling, organics, delinquent accounts, and then lastly, just updating our licensing requirements for those haulers that operate outside of our contract. So if they provide services to, for example, our commercial businesses, they are required to be licensed by the city. So it's just updating those business licensing requirements. And then the last item I did want to discuss is just the standards. This is referenced in the staff report and is a fairly unique part of our solid waste ordinance in that not all of our kind of implementation rules are codified within the ordinance itself, but those are actually adopted separately as standards outside of the ordinance. So this could include items such as, what can be put in the trash, what can be put in recycling, instructions for putting trash carts out, and other kind of day-to-day administrative items. The last time we adopted these, we brought them to the council for your review and approval. And once this ordinance is adopted, the E&R Commission has reviewed those standards. We'll make the final changes to them. And then we can bring them back to the council, the standards, for kind of the final review and adoption as kind of the day-to-day implementation rules for not only administering the contracts, but also for administering our solid waste ordinance. So with that, we are recommending approval of the ordinance amendments included in your packet. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for that report. Let's see if there are any questions. Councilmember Neblett.
No questions. Just when things like this come up for us, I am reminded of how much work really goes into putting things like this together, even if it's updating and such. So I really appreciate the work that's been put into these new changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Juniman.
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
No questions.
Councilmember Knudsen.
No questions. Well, I do have a question, Mr. Thompson. It seems like more of an update than a radical change in the ordinance. These are things we talked about in the commission and when we set up the 5.5-year contract. It also seems to me that some of the opportunities for multifamily are better than they have been in the past. Does that seem accurate?
Yes.
Mayor and Council, yes, I agree. Both on that, these are really just items that have already been anticipated in our contracts, but also that I think what changed is for multifamily properties is the ability to go to dumpsters. When we only did
Right.
carts before, that was kind of one of the major drawbacks for the 5 that have opted out. So now that we've allowed for dumpster service, we see that as a good service for our multifamily properties.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, and I have no questions. Council members, we have 2 different motions here. Is there a motion from the council?
I move approval of the ordinance repealing the solid waste ordinance, management ordinance, and creating a new solid waste management ordinance.
Second.
Moved by Juneman, seconded by Knutson. The motion to adopt the ordinance repealing the solid waste management ordinance and creating a new solid waste management ordinance. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, then let's go to the vote. Councilmember Neblett.
Aye.
Councilmember Juneman.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
And Councilmember Knutson.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. There is a second motion, and this one requires 4 votes. This is authorizing publication by title and summary. Is there a motion?
I further move the resolution authorizing publication of this ordinance by title and summary.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Juneman, seconded by Knutson. The motion to adopt the resolution authorizing publication by title and summary. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, then let's vote. Councilmember Neblett.
Aye.
Councilmember Juneman.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Knutson.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. It's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on, our next agenda item is the conditional use permit and home occupation license resolution for a home-based lawn care business with storage of commercial vehicles on Bartlemy Lane North. And council members, for this agenda item, I am going to pass the gavel to our acting mayor, Knutson. I have used this lawn care service, and I used that, well, for a number of years, and I want to avoid any potential conflicts. And so I am going to pass the gavel to Councilmember Knutson.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Thompson, you'll be the presenter in this, I assume?
That's correct, Acting Mayor Knutson.
Go ahead.
Boy, this is the Jeff Thompson show tonight.
That's what I thought.
So Mayor and Council, we have an application as introduced at a residential property on Bartlemy Lane North in Maplewood. So the property owner purchased the property about a year ago, Jeremy Herdler, and he owns and resides in at the home or at the house, and then also operates a lawn care business and storage of some commercial vehicles on his property. Businesses operating on the site, there are outside employees that have also been reporting to the property, and we became aware of this home-based business as a result of a code enforcement complaint and follow-up action by our code enforcement staff. The property owner has therefore made the application for both a home occupation license and a conditional use permit. Before I get into the details of the application, just want to outline two operating constraints for home-based businesses in Maplewood, and to note that we do allow home-based businesses, kind of 2 different categories. And the first are permitted use home occupations. So these types of home-based businesses are allowed within a single-family home or any residential property without any special license or approval from the city or from the council. And there are operational restrictions that are then required for those businesses. So they include the business can't have any outside employees, they can't have customers visiting the site or any customers' vehicles on premises. There can only be 1 commercial vehicle associated with that home-based business parked on the property or stored on the property, but there can't be any storage of heavy vehicles or equipment parked or stored on the site. And as long as they meet those provisions, as well as a couple others, they are permitted to operate, again, as I mentioned, without any special permits from the city. We then allow a separate process, which is what the applicant has requested, for a conditional use home occupation. And this still has operating constraints, but allows some things beyond the permitted uses, and allows the council and the city to place conditions then if we approve that conditional use permit. So some of the things that could be allowed are employment of non-residents in the home-based business, so outside employees, having customers or customer vehicles on the premises, doing any sort of manufacturing, assembling, or processing, having storage of more than one vehicle, or providing kind of more heavy equipment storage. And then lastly, if there's any production of waste that would be extraordinary for a home-based business. So if it exceeds or meets any of those requirements, it then requires a conditional use permit. What the applicant, as I mentioned, is operating this business. What he is proposing is a conditional use permit for a home-based business under his proposal, which would be business hours restricted from Monday through Friday, 7 to 5. He did request 2 outside employees, and then the storage of some heavy commercial equipment, including 3 commercial vehicles, trailers, and then some of the equipment associated with the lawn care business. All of this, all the exterior storage would occur on kind of a class 5, which is hard surface, but it's like a rock material driveway, and would be surrounded by a privacy fence and gate to provide screening as well as security. But he's not proposing any customers visiting the site as associated with the business. Included in your packet is a resolution for approval of the CUP, and if the council were to approve it, there are a number of conditions included in there, including submitting the fence plans for the screening, complying with grading permit and setback requirements for the hard surface areas, limiting vehicle operation from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., only allowing 1 employee, outside employee, to park on site, and then only allowing minor maintenance on site and within the garage on the property. My screen really likes to jump. We did, as with all development applications, notify 65 property owners in the immediate vicinity of the property, and we did receive 10 responses, which were included in your packet, as well as 2 neighbors did speak at the public hearing with concerns and objections to the home occupation. Ultimately, the Planning Commission, in their review, failed. They made a motion to approve the application, and that failed. So the motion is effectively to not approve the application, and the vote was 1 to 5. We have included in your packet 2 options for the council's consideration tonight. The first would adopt the resolution approving the request. So this would allow the property owner to operate the business with the proposed exterior storage and having the 1 outside employee, but would include those conditions that I referenced and are included in the resolution. The second option, which would be consistent with the Planning Commission's decision, which would be to adopt the resolution denying the request. As I mentioned at the beginning, it would still allow the applicant to operate a home-based business in this location. That would include the administrative and office uses for the lawn care business, as well as the storage of one light commercial vehicle associated with that business. But the larger commercial vehicles and the exterior storage would not be allowed should that resolution be adopted. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. So let's open it up to council questions. Council Member Neblus.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Knudsen. I don't know that I have any questions. I've read the comments from the neighborhood, which are very telling in what this business does to the neighborhood. It basically changes the makeup of the neighborhood. And this is a neighbor who moved in just a year ago and has made all these changes. And this is a hard one for me because I want to support small business, but if I wouldn't want to live next door to that either. And so the neighbors have had lots of complaints, I think, since this business started building in the 1 year that they've been there. And there's been lots of complaints. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Councilmember Neville is so kind. I really feel like the horse has been out of the barn for quite some time, and all of a sudden, due to some complaints, it's like, oh, what should we have done? Well, let's try and do it now. Quick, shut the door. This is how it strikes me. I don't understand how you can just move into a property just because it's of significant size and think you can just start doing whatever you please without checking at least with the city when you have a lot of equipment going on here and a lot of, at certain times of the day, a lot of activity. I really have a hard time, if you will, believing that it wouldn't cross your mind to check this out. Could be, but it just doesn't seem believable to me. And I just, like Councilmember Neville said, I have nothing against small businesses, and we have home occupation licenses for that reason. But this one just doesn't hit me as a small business in a residential neighborhood. And I've sat here not only for the one we did on Carver, not terribly long ago, but another one over on Larpenter probably 9 years ago at least. And in both cases, these people came to us and went to the neighbors first and said, this is what I'm hoping to do here. What do you think? And what do I have to do? And this one is, well, I've done it now. Oh dear. What do I have to do? Oops. What should I have done? It just doesn't strike me as doable at this point. And I have a number of reasons. First of all, how is this person ever going to establish any trust with the neighbors? I just don't, because it just seems like he's been moving in on them. We even made some comments about the one where they're not sure if he isn't partially on their property, and they questioned him about it and he walked away. Like, well, that's impressive. Maybe not. I do not realize that even if we would deny this, he still has some work to do to be in compliance. And I hope he realizes that. I hope he didn't apply for this as a way out of the mistakes he's already made, because it kind of has that ring to me. I don't deny anybody the right to make a living, but I think he's barking up the wrong tree. And I would be unhappy if I were the people with the bedroom window right next to all that nonsense. Thing. I wouldn't like it if he really didn't find out where the property line was before he started building fences and buildings. I mean, there's just a whole lot of things going on here that says he doesn't take into account what you have to do to have a home occupation license in a residential neighborhood. I get what he wants to do, but I think he's already done too much. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I have a lot of problems with this. I think the minute I started talking to some of the neighbors and reading through the letters and comments, it reminded me a lot of a situation that we had recently over on Frost. And it's more than just the use, it's also the attitude and neighborliness that I'm troubled by. Telling your neighbors you can start your vehicle whenever you want, things like that. This is not a good way of going about all of this. And furthermore, if you drive by that property or look at it even on Google Maps, it is a small property for what he's looking to do on that property. And it doesn't make sense. And finally, kind of where I think Councilmember Juniman was going, this is now the second time we've had something in front of us of people who were maybe caught doing something they shouldn't be doing and are now asking for permission. This again is not something that indicates to me a sort of responsible and thoughtful neighbor. It's someone who's trying to get away with something and got caught and is now trying to figure out how to get around it. And the reality for me is I don't think the usage makes sense. I think the property is much too small for what he's looking to do. It does not fit with the neighborhood. And on top of all of that, which is probably enough right there to say no, the attitude and neighborliness that's being reported to us here, combined with, I think also what indicates an issue of neighborliness is, finding out what the rules are before you start doing things. All of this adds up to a big no for me.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. As you know, I'm the liaison with the Planning Commission. And those individuals, again, are expert volunteers, spent a long time on this. And we spent a long time listening to Jeremy and his father. And frankly, in spite of what you say, they seem like very nice people, very appropriate and very accommodating, at least during that session. So with that responsibility, I actually drove down and took a look at the site. I reviewed it pretty carefully, thought of my own experience with a neighbor that did that kind of thing. Visited 2 properties in my neighborhood that are home occupied, and see that, how they've accommodated. I think this particular thing is a bit too far. In fact, maybe a lot too far. When you look at the property, it clearly looks as an industrial or commercial site. It does not look residential from the street appearance. You look at the presented pictures that were in our packet, and it looks like an open setting, no vehicles there. And then, of course, the neighbor, who's been actively involved, went and took pictures himself. You can see the 3 major vehicles there, and other neighbors reported activity that doesn't seem particularly contained. In other words, transfer of equipment in the street, people parking in the street, repairing equipment. Obviously, there's going to be some loudness when you move equipment from trailer to trailer. So my guess is that Mr. Hurdler was able to operate the business pretty much as he would want to. In other words, I think what you're seeing here is this is how he would operate the business. In other words, let's park in the street, let's, put all our vehicles there. I mean, and I guess that's the way it would make sense. So in looking at this very carefully, the Planning Commission voted 5-1. The one vote was kind of, well, what the heck kind of thing. So my guess is there wasn't a great deal of, support for this particular project. And if you, read and check out the detail on some of these comments, it is way too much for this property. So that is my review, my opinion. And again, I support our Planning Commission. These volunteers do a heck of a job, and they looked very thoroughly into it. And so those are my comments. So do we have any more comments, or should we call for a motion?
With the absence of comments, I guess I will leap. I move denial of the conditional use permit and home occupation license for the home-based lawn care business with storage of commercial vehicles at 821 Bartlemy Lane North.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Juniman, seconded by Councilmember Neblitz. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I have one question.
Go ahead.
Since all of this fence and all of this things have already been done. What is going to happen to what is going to happen to the property? I guess
I would suggest we get Mr. Thompson to either come back with an answer, or if he has one right now. We don't want to speculate here. Mr. Thompson?
Sure, Acting Mayor and Council. So, as I mentioned, this came to our attention as a code enforcement complaint. We informed the property owner what the requirements are. We did pause our enforcement action until this application was seen through. And so, once the council takes action, and if you do deny it, we will then require that the property be brought into conformance with our home occupation requirements that I outlined. As I said, it can still have one, but it's going to be limited in scope, and certainly not to the extent that as it has operated or even as it is proposed. So we will continue our enforcement action to ensure they comply with our home-based business requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Acting Mayor?
Councilmember Smith?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I just kind of wanted to reiterate too, I think as we consider things in the future, as future council members do, for us to overturn a commission, it has to be really compelling. You know, the commissions do a tremendous amount of work, as you mentioned, and you know, if it's a close 3-2 with a lot of issues in there, I think that you know, that's one thing. But you know, when it's something where the commission has spoken this clearly, there's got to be I think a really, really compelling reason for us to overturn that. And you know, I have a tremendous amount of respect to the work that they put into this. And I'd also like to say too, in fairness to Mr. Hurdler, you know, I'm basing my comments based off of what I've heard from others, right? And you know, I do appreciate what you said, Councilmember Knudsen, about the way that meeting went down. And so if I'm off base on that approach, you know, I would apologize. But I do think that, you know, just on its face, it's something that I would not support. But I just want to be clear about that I'm going off of reports that I've heard, and sometimes those are not true. And so I apologize if that was off base.
Your comments about the commission and our work with the commissions is well said, Councilmember Smith. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, let's call for the vote. Councilmember Neblitz.
Aye.
Councilmember Juniman.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
And the acting mayor votes aye as well. So the motion to deny the comprehensive plan unit amendment was denied. Thank you. And I will turn the gavel back to the mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Knudsen. And on that vote, my vote should be recorded as an abstain. Moving on to our last agenda item. Again, this is the Mr. Thompson show tonight. This is concerning Cobblestone Court Apartments at 2585 and 2605 Conway Avenue East. Mr. Thompson, would you give us a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. So Cobblestone Court Apartments is a 74-unit apartment complex, kind of located between Century Avenue and McKnight on Conway, just north of the 3M campus. The complex has 3 apartment buildings, 3 separate buildings, a detached garage building, as well as some surface parking lots. County records indicate that the buildings were constructed in 1964 and 1968, so in the mid to late 60s. And the current rents at these apartments, you can see on the screen here, are $750 for an efficiency unit. 1 bedrooms range from just under $700 to $950, and then 2 bedrooms from around $900 to $1,200. this is a kind of a prime example of naturally occurring affordable housing. And probably we've talked about that before in some of our housing discussions, but what that essentially means is do the age of the structure, the finishes within there, and the rents that they're charging, these rents that are listed here are at affordable housing levels, or they're less than the rents affordable to families making 60% of the area median income. But that's done in a market scenario. So there are no any covenants or restrictions that are in place on the property from us at the city or any other government agency that requires those rents to be affordable. So they can be adjusted up or down based on market conditions. And so, as I said, it's kind of a classic example of affordable housing in our community that occurs naturally. It's not as a requirement of the city. So AEON approached us not too long ago as this property came on the market. You may have read some news stories in the past several years about similar projects or similar properties in the metro that have gone up for sale. And there's a significant amount of outside investment groups from throughout the United States that are looking to the Twin Cities apartment market as kind of desirable for acquisition and investment. And as a result, sometimes they can acquire the property, make some modest improvements in them, and then without those formal restrictions on rental restrictions for affordable housing, can increase those rents to what the market would support, and certainly beyond affordability limits, which could result in not only the loss of affordable housing units, but also in displacement of the people that are currently living there. So AEON is a nonprofit corporation. They're based in Minneapolis. Their mission is to create and sustain quality affordable housing. Bill McGue from AEON is on our call tonight as well to answer any questions that the council has. But they own and manage 5,600 affordable housing units in the Twin Cities. As they noted in some of their application materials, they have been active in the past number of years because of this kind of issue that's popped up. They've been very active in the preservation of NOAA units. So they were quick to put an acquisition package together, and they have a purchase agreement with the property owner. Again, this is a transaction that's happening on private marketplace, not facilitated by the city. It's just happening in the marketplace. But they have a secured purchase agreement to purchase the property, make a little over $500,000 in capital improvements, and then are committed to maintaining the affordability at the 60% AMI level for a significant term for 20 years. In their, they have financing and bank sources that they work with on projects like this, and as they've submitted, they have identified with the capital improvements that are needed, the increase purchase price based on market conditions, a financing gap to accomplish this of $500,000. So they have submitted a financial assistance request to the city. They have the letter you may notice references the $500,000 gap. They have put an application in for $400,000 in home funding from Ramsey County, and then asking for the city for the remaining $100,000 in a deferred loan. And so and then they're also asking from the city for a 4D tax classification. So just walk through both of those items for the council. The first being the 4D tax classification. So this is a program or a allowed benefit in the state statute that allows for a class rate reduction for property tax purposes for properties, and properties that are eligible are those that have an affordable housing restriction that's required by, in this case, a local government. We've had Ellers, our financial consultant, do some analysis of this tax classification. It would result in a local reduction, or a reduction in local property taxes to the county, the school district, and the city in about $48,000 a year, and about $15,500 of that would be the annual impact on the city's tax collection on this property. And that's, again, an estimate just based on the tax year 2020 values and rates. But if approved, that tax classification reduction would continue through the 20-year term of the affordability commitment. But what it does is it helps them cash flow and reduce their ongoing operational expenses as they manage the property at a kind of a reduced rent beyond maybe what the market would support. And the second ask is for a $100,000 deferred loan from the city. And some of the terms that we've included in the loan agreement, in the draft loan agreement included in your packet, is they would maintain the units at affordable, as affordable housing at that same level of 60% area median income. It'd be a 20-year term. So the term of the loan would be 20 years, and any sort of repayment would be deferred during that 20-year term. And then in consideration for that, they would invest the $555,000 in capital improvements over that term. They would comply with our new rental licensing ordinance requirements that we've put in place, as well as we just had our code enforcement and rental housing staff review the property and did identify a good opportunity to do some additional screening from the property from the single family homes to the north. There actually was a fence there previously that's been removed, so that the parking area is pretty exposed to that single family home. So we are asking that they put that screening or fencing back into place. And then lastly, they would need to submit an annual report to the city just to ensure that the affordability is maintained and that those capital improvements have occurred. If they meet all these conditions, at the end of the 20 years, the loan would be forgiven. But at any point, if there was a default or any sort of change or amendment, the city could require repayment of the loan with interest. So the city has identified a source of funding for this loan, and that's from our TIF pooling resources. So the city has 5 existing housing TIF districts. So these are districts that have been created over the years as housing districts, which means that they were created for the purposes of affordable housing, and at the time for the specific the housing projects that were happening within those districts. But as they're allocated for affordable housing, the city does have the ability to pool that money and actually use it anywhere in the city for affordable housing purposes. And Ehlers has estimated that the cash balance at the end of 2020 would be roughly $1 million, about $1 million in that. So the question you could ask is, what else could that money be used for? It's really exclusively for affordable housing because it was created as part of housing TIF districts. We're really restricted to affordable housing. And the second question we asked at the staff level is certainly, are there any opportunity costs, or are there things we potentially aren't funding in the future by funding this? I would say that preservation of 74 units or affordable housing for 20 years for $100,000 is an incredibly good deal. If we're looking at new affordable housing units, that number would be substantially higher. So we think it's a good use of those TIF pooling resources that we have available to us. And certainly, I won't go through all these, but there's certainly policy guidance in our new comprehensive plan in our housing chapter, not only to promote affordable housing, but specifically saying that we need to maintain and enhance the affordable housing that we already have in our community today. So with that, we have 2 actions that we are recommending approval of from the council. The first is the approval of the loan agreement with AEON, which outlines the terms that I've outlined here. And the second is approval of a subordination agreement, which essentially puts the city's loan in second position after their principal bank financing, which is a very standard condition in deals like this. So with that, Mayor, Ron Beatty, our city attorney, has reviewed these agreements as well. And as I mentioned, Bill McGue with AEON is on the call tonight if the council has questions, but we are recommending approval of this request.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Could we have the representative from AEON address the council?
Mayor Abrams, distinguished council members, my name is Bill McGue. I'm the Director of Acquisitions and Special Projects at AEON. And I appreciate both the audience this evening, the staff's very hard work, as well as your consultants and city attorney in helping us with this acquisition. Quickly, AEON is over 30 years old, founded as an interfaith organization in Minneapolis as they began development of the convention center facilities there in the mid-'80s. The organization was founded as a trust organization to preserve affordable housing in the Elliott Park neighborhood of Minneapolis. Over the last 30 plus years, we have developed over 2,800, almost 3,000 units of affordable housing using primarily the low-income housing tax credit, home funds, Section 8 funds, and the myriad of community and housing development tools. Since about 2015, our president and CEO, Alan Arthur, has been advocating vigorously for resources to be designed and made available for the preservation of housing. As Mr. Thompson indicated, the preservation of existing high-quality affordable housing is far cheaper, to the tune of less than half than it costs to build new. Regularly, this late 1960s and early 70s vintage housing is what is being sold and upgraded, and hundreds of families are being displaced in the process. They are generally quite well constructed. That was a time when the trades were still very active in building these properties, and so in general, very good structurally. They face, depending on where you are, a variety of capital improvement needs. This property, however, is one that is in quite lovely condition. There's an enormous amount of credit to be given to the husband and wife couple who has owned it for the last 14 years. They've operated with pride, and so we're very excited to preserve this affordable housing. As one of the two major activities of our organization since 2017, we've acquired over 2,700 affordable housing units in these older NOAA projects, including 422 units in Richfield, and just recently 306 in East Bloomington, and as you may know, the Huntington Place project in Brooklyn Park. We have built a substantial staff to handle this level of growth, and along with myself, I've been at the organization about a year and a half now. Have added some significant seasoned capacity to the organization to manage these projects. We have construction management in-house. We run our own management company and have for a couple of decades. And we own Golden Star Apartments, which is also in Maplewood over on the west side. So this is a very critical property for us. It was, we competed against a number of national investment funds, which are those that would come in and do a renovation, displace many of the residents and raise the rents by a number of $100 a month. And as you can appreciate, affordable and low-income tenants are that's an enormous challenge for them. They can't do that, so they got to move somewhere else. So we very much appreciate the city's help. Without you, without the county, we cannot compete with these properties that are being sold to these national investment funds. We encourage you to encourage your colleagues around the Twin Cities to follow your lead in doing so, because without the public support, we can't do it. So we're grateful. We will remain very closely in touch with Jeff. Any of you who have questions at the staff and leadership level over the years as we maintain this affordable housing. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I have to say that, when I saw this on our agenda tonight, we all know about the lack of affordable housing, especially, right here in the Twin Cities. Mm-hmm. And what you're proposing goes along with our comp plan. It goes along with our desire as a city to preserve and rehab housing within our city, because we are an aging community in terms of our housing stock. And, very important point that rehabbing apartments like this and preserving them is so much better in terms of an investment than building something brand new. And so I was very pleased to see this in our packet tonight. So with that, let's hear from the other council members. Councilmember Neblett, do you have any questions?
I do. Thank you, Mayor. So I think that I'm confused with the terms we're using. So, and Mr. Thompson, maybe you can help me here. We started out by talking about these are naturally occurring affordable housing. but it's not housing that is designated as affordable housing. So what I think this is what I think I understand, that this is about housing preservation and keeping the rents low. Is that correct?
Mayor and Councilmember Neblett, yes. So it is. These are based on the rents that are being charged today. This is affordable housing. This is classified and designated as affordable housing. What makes it naturally occurring is it's not any sort of restriction that's making it affordable. So oftentimes on projects, the city or the state or through the state through the federal government through the state has provided funding in projects which requires them to be affordable. That's not the case here. This is in the market, just happened that the rents are at affordable levels. What we're proposing to do is provide some funding so we can then get that long-term commitment for affordability for the next 20 years.
Okay, got it. Thank you. One other question. On page 198, and again, this might be a term of art. Right above that little box with the numbers of bedrooms and the monthly rents, that last sentence there says, therefore, the rent restrictions for 2020 would be as follows. I don't understand what that means. What do you mean by rent restriction?
60% of it.
Mayor and council, what those numbers are is we take, these actually come from the Met Council uses these and Ramsey County uses these. So what it is we take the area median income for the Twin Cities area and take 60% of that income. And then the rent restriction is based on the occupancy of those units and the amount of monthly income that can be dedicated towards housing. So those are the maximum rents that could be charged in order for a family that makes 60% of area median income to be able to afford those rents based on kind of the affordable housing guidelines.
Got it. So that's just as high as they can go, basically.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Juniman, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First of all, having been part of the League of Women Voters housing study 3 years ago, I became more acquainted with AON then, and this is an organization that stands behind what it does, and as in this case, seeks the opportunities to help make affordable housing last. So I appreciate that they are looking at our community. And I think one of the great features of any AON project is that they manage that housing. So these people are not left high and dry, which is enormously important. I have one question about the rehab, $555,000 rehab. Is there any energy conservation or any energy saving upgrades going into this, since people at the lower levels of income sometimes are not acquainted with this, but it will be actually helpful for both the people who own the buildings and the people who are paying rent. So has that been a consideration at all?
Councilmember Juniman, Bill McHugh with AON. Yes, for sure. Our standards, we have a very strict set of standards for things such as any replacements of light fixtures will be LED light fixtures. We'll use low flow fixtures on any plumbing and appliances. The other couple of things that are on the list, the boilers and hot water heaters are not horribly old at this property versus some that we have seen at others. So it's not in terrible condition, but some of the money, but we know that their useful life is going to come to an end, in the first half of this term. So some of that money is being set aside to replace those boilers with high efficiency boilers and high efficiency hot water heaters. Just to make the point also, the existing owners have replaced many of the windows. And so one of the things that is often neglected in these projects are windows because they're very expensive. And these folks have put triple pane windows in many of units. And so as we see those that can be replaced and improve just the containment in the units, we'll do that as well. So we are doing all the things that are available.
Thank you. And again, with that, you were right to say compliments to the people who have owned this and kept it. Thank
Agreed.
you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I am thrilled about this project. I think a lot of what I was thinking has already been said, so I won't reiterate. But, for us to have the opportunity to increase our housing stock like this with a great partner and at such a sort of efficient investment for us just makes all the sense in the world. So thank you so much, Anne, for you guys stepping up to do this. And I'm very excited to get this going.
Thank you. And Councilmember Knutson.
Yeah, I just have one question is, I know there's a gap of $500,000. I can clearly support what we're doing. No worry there. This is a fantastic project. I love the fact that we have the pooled TIF money. And I was just doing some quick calculations. If the net loss for us is $15,000 over 20 years, that's not a lot of money, given what we have. And so my question is how likely is the other $400,000 to be acquired? Mr. McHugh?
Councilmember Knutson, thank you for the question. We are also very confident. The Ramsey County will be taking this to their board meeting on the 1st of December. And Mary Lou Egan there at the county, we're very familiar with the county. We've spoken with all the commissioners there who are also very supportive. And as you know, are looking at increasing their role and level of advocacy, both financially and otherwise, for affordable housing. So this is fairly easy for her to do. This is federal money, the home funds.
Okay.
And so we are very confident, knocking on wood always, because you never know until it's in the bank. But no, we feel very good about that. And the two, city and county, have operated very seamlessly to support this project. So we appreciate it.
Thank you very much. As the head of our Economic Development Authority, I wish this was my idea, but I'll go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, council members, we have two motions on this particular agenda item. Would someone like to move one of the motions, the first one?
I will move the loan agreement with Aon Maplewood 1 Preservation JV.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Smith. The motion to approve the loan agreement with Aon Maplewood Preservation JV. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. Councilmember Neblett, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Juniman.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Knutson.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. There is a second motion concerning the subordination agreement.
I further move the subordination agreement.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Neblett. The motion to approve the subordination agreement. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Councilmember Neblett, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Juniman.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Knutson.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well.
Hooray!
And that concludes
Welcome, Aon.
for tonight. Congratulations, Aon. And we're looking forward to that project. Council members, this is the conclusion of our meeting, and I want to give each one of you an opportunity for any closing comments that you'd like to make. Councilmember Neblett.
Thank you, Mayor. It's Thanksgiving week, and I've been thinking about things to be thankful for. And I think one of the things that I don't know that we say it enough, but the month of November is Native American Heritage Month. And we sit on Maplewood, the state of Minnesota, sits on the lands of the Lakota and the Dakota people. And I just want to give thanks to those Native peoples for allowing us to be here. And and just thank them uh, for their heritage and for their history, which hasn't always been great with our country. But you know, we're a nation in progress still today. So I just want to give thanks for this council and the staff of the city of Maplewood for just being able to move and breathe and do whatever my little heart desires me to do, because I live in America and I don't ever want to forget that. Thank you to our public safety officers. I am thankful for them because they go out every day. And they are our representatives to the public every time they go out. And they do a fine job, and I'm thankful for them. And I'm just really thankful. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, first of all, I appreciate all of you listening and reacting to my request for the Nature Center Task Force. It has been really a very good group and a very good experience. This is a dedicated group that wants to see things go well and for us to be sustainable. So that's a good thing. And like Councilmember Neblett, I wish to thank everybody. This is Thanksgiving week, but because this is my job, thank everybody involved with my job. As a council, we have been, I think, quite resilient and quite flexible. It's amazing to me how well we've been able to carry on. But of course, what could the five of us do if the staff weren't making this possible? So actually, we should be more thankful to them, I guess.
Well,
for everything they do to keep us moving and make it available to the public as well as it can be at this point. I just think there are other places that probably aren't functioning as well as we are. And it's a great tribute to everybody who contributes to this, the movement of this organization. So thanks to everybody on the staff for keeping us on task and keeping us moving forward. And our projects are moving along as best as can be. And I just, like Sylvia, I am so grateful to be living in Maplewood. And most of the time I've been that way, but I particularly feel that way right now because of how the world is. And this is still, if you will, a place of comfort to live because we have our services and we have people working here who care. So I thank my fellow council members that we've been able to work together through all this. And thank you to staff, and everyone have a very happy and blessed Thanksgiving, however you're choosing to observe it this year.
Thank you, Councilmember Juniman. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, this pandemic continues to challenge us, and I am going through, I think, kind of a different level of empathy with particularly some of our children who are seniors in high school right now, who are going through these sort of big moments in life kind of on their own. And I'm, you know, we're finishing up the second to the last council meeting for me after 5 years of service on this council. And, you know, it feels a little weird to be sitting in my office by myself, sort of getting ready to mark this moment in my life alone. I mean, with my family, of course, but without you guys and without the staff and without all the people that I've been working with for the last 5 years to help make our community a little bit better. And it, you know, it feels kind of anticlimactic and kind of, and my wife and I were just talking about it and just, you know, it's tough. And there's a lot of folks who are going through this, whether it's, you know, like I said, folks who are going through it in school, kids who are going through it at school, or people who are making other changes in their life, people who are trying to get married, or people passing away, trying to figure out how to mourn those people when you can't be together. And so I'm very thoughtful tonight about the way this pandemic impacts our community, the way it impacts the people, and the way it sort of changes those milestone moments in our life, and how we have to figure out how to mark those. And I'm not sure with this one. It feels it just feels very very strange and very like leaves me wanting, if you will. So that's kind of where my head's at right now, and just thinking about all the folks out there who are going through much more difficult things than I am through this time. And I think this round of the pandemic is hitting us all closer. I think we all know more people who are impacted by serious illness or even death. And you know, it's going to be important that we stick together and look for those silver linings, because it's I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, and we have to continue to take care of ourselves and each other. So that's what's on my mind tonight.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Knudsen.
Yeah, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I want to thank my colleagues on the council and the mayor, of course, and the city staff. Like I said, just how much can I say? I think I've said it over and over again. It's just a great pleasure to work with them. But what I wanted to highlight a little bit is the incredible stuff that passes through. For instance, tonight, I tabbed a page because I wanted to highlight number 9 on the consent agenda, waiver of variable pass-through percentage, and I guess I missed it. But it's a great opportunity for the city to participate and help Tubman on a juvenile justice grant. I mean, this grant is extraordinary. It cuts right to the chase about what it takes to intervene positively with juveniles and under the juvenile justice system. So, you know, we just didn't have time or whatever, but and then of course the affordable housing. Just the you feel like, you remember those old railroad roundhouses where the trains come through and then they switch tracks and stuff? We're just an incredible roundhouse for good. We do incredible things pass through, and we get them on the right track. So I just want to shout out to everybody how thankful I am to participate in such a great organization.
Thank you, Councilmember Knudsen. And I will close this out by saying happy Thanksgiving to everyone, to all of our staff, not only the staff that are on the Zoom meeting tonight, but all of our staff who work so diligently for us all in Maplewood. This really is a different Thanksgiving. Councilmember Smith, I appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
Because I think I've said it before, you know, we're all in this storm. We're in different ships, and this is really a very different Thanksgiving than we are normally accustomed to. It's a lot of changes, many losses, many plans are canceled. And so one of my friends this week sent me something that they had seen on Facebook, of course, and sent it to me. And, you know, I've been thinking about it the rest of the week because not everything is canceled. And I'm trying to focus on Thanksgiving and what it really means in terms of having a spirit of gratitude. And this little thing from Facebook said that, you know, sunshine is not canceled. Love is not canceled. Relationships are not canceled. Reading is not canceled. Naps are not canceled. Devotion is not canceled. Music is not canceled. Dancing is not canceled. Imagination is not canceled. Conversations are not canceled. And hope is not canceled. And so with that, folks, have a happy Thanksgiving, and remember all of the things that aren't canceled, because we have so much to be thankful for. And I hope you all have a spirit of gratitude. And I hope your turkeys, if you're cooking turkey, turns out well. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving. Right.